Well, welcome back to another episode of Living Lifted with Brenton Ross. I got the man himself, Jacob McLaughlin, in the house today. If you guys have been watching any of the videos recently, you've seen his ad embedded because his company sponsors this channel. Welcome back.
Thank you, and I apologize to everyone having to see my ugly mug every
Yeah. First time you were on, we went through a lot of your story, and we used that to be a prompt to allow a lot of people to relate with your story. And today, there'll be more of your ongoing story of what's going on in your life now. The way that I've been watching you step into facing things head on of how do I still want to grow? How do I still want to find more peace? You know, more business doesn't mean more peace. More money doesn't mean more peace. So what does that actually look like? And then maybe even some of you just hearing me say that be like, who's this guy that he has the option to keep making more money? And it's like so cavalier about it that I wish I had that problem, you know, but we're going to explain it in a way that I do think will make sense and be relative. So before we get like that far into things and dive into things, something you did just do that I think will tie into this well is, since you've been on this show, you've purchased a tranche of land and a home up off the grid, up north of here by about a couple hours. And I think it's so cool that to get there, you have to have the coordinates. It won't even show up on maps. That is awesome. So why did you do that?
Yeah, great question. First off, again, thanks for having me on here. It's always great hanging out with you more. But yeah, what led me to get that property was I can honestly say, when we talk about peace, right? One of my go-tos is, you know, if people watch the last episode, you know, I came out here, I had $1,200 to my name 6 years ago, and I wanted to make a name for myself. I wanted to make a difference for me and my future family. Yeah. And so I went into that hustle mode, right? But then every single time over the last really 6 years, I would always hit a wall. You get that, I'm chasing success, I'm doing sales, I'm doing all the stuff. But what has always brought me back was going out in the woods, just driving up and going to Flagstaff and taking my dog hiking and sitting there and just being still. Because
it reminds you of home or your childhood, or is it more so it's just the simplicity of it?
Yeah, I think it's both.
Really?
And what I mean by that is I used to hunt a lot back in the day, and so I'd go in the deer stand, and I was just talking about it this morning is, you know, there's something special about being in the woods at 4:35 in the morning, and then you hear everything wake up. You know, you hear the birds going, you hear the squirrel starting to go, you see the raccoon heading back to the tree, so it's getting ready for bed, right? And you do that. But for me,
every time I'd get up in a deer stand at that time of morning, my dad always gave me a hard time because I always went to sleep.
Yeah, I went back to sleep.
He loved it though, because he sat there and experienced everything you were describing with me asleep leaning against him.
That's a special moment.
He'd always say, I don't even care if we see any deer out there. Me sitting there with you falling asleep against my arm, just listening to the birds and the trees. And we'd always be up on a ridge with a good vantage point. There was a creek where we could see and everything. And I think if he was here today, I would be willing to bet that those are some of his fondest memories.
Yeah.
Because he was at peace in those moments.
And exactly to that thing, as you see, you know, I bring up to you all the time is, you know, a lot of times we're chasing what we already had. And what I mean by that is you chase peace, you chase, you know, you want to have just like easiness of life. But what I remember, I used to watch a video and it would talk about, you know, many rich people work so hard so they don't worry about money, so they had more free time. But even when you're broke, you have a bunch of free time. Right? Like when I didn't have a lot of money, I had all the time in the world. And so it's different lives for me. But why I got that property was, like you said, a couple of things. One, it's homesteaded, it's off the grid. You can't find it if you don't want it. Number two is just something special of like a legacy for me. There wasn't anything more proud than when I bought that. And then my girlfriend like made the design of like, it's called White Buffalo Ranch. And the story behind that is, you know, white buffalo, they're very rare. They're 1 in 10 million. But also from the Native American world, they're very sacred. It shows that their prayers are being answered. And for me, I was just thought that was really cool because never in my life did I think I could buy an 18-acre property that's all homestead, that's off grid, that's, wasn't $2. And, being able to go out there, it was just a proud moment for me. But also too, I now had a spot that was mine.
Yeah.
Nobody else can come on that land.
Yeah.
Nobody else can do it. Like I'm backed up to the Forest Service land. So I bought 18 acres, but I actually got over 100 acres. No one's building by me. And it's just like having that opportunity to be like I tell you, when I sit there, the happiest I've ever been. It doesn't matter how many sales I've done and when I grow my company, all that stuff, the happiest is sitting there drinking a coffee, looking at the mountain with the sun coming over, and I see an elk. And like, that's, I just make it. And again, it just.
What goes through your head when you see that elk?
Yeah. I honestly, it's the beauty of it. Back in the day, being in small town Iowa, I just
being able to be still enough to notice the beauty of it.
Bam. And then also just, I used to want to kill everything when we're hunting your small town Iowa, right? Like that's, you shoot stuff, go around. But for me now, I'm able to actually appreciate that moment, appreciate that animal, appreciate, like it sounds so weird to say, and I feel like I'm sounding like a hippie, but like to hear the wind go through the trees, be able to appreciate that moment. Like, because when I'm running a business and, even Eric, who's our videographer, like works with me, is like, he gets to hear what's going on a day to day with a business. You get so busy, you get so caught up being here in Scottsdale. There's always something to do. Yeah. But in those moments, I'm able to sit there and then just be still. So that's a big piece of it. And again, I always just feel closer to God when I'm out in nature. I'm just able to see the beauty that he created. Like that's really what it comes to, is I see this beautiful animal, massive bull elk walk across my property. And I'm like, man, God, you're so cool. Like, and being able to appreciate that moment. And, the last piece of it was also, now looking at that next step in my life of a family and having my girlfriend, she has a 4-year-old, is, just for me is like, it's a spot that I can make memories in, just build something with. And so that's what led me to getting that property, was just having my own place, but also being back to simplicity. That's what I've been really chasing. And even though we're growing the company and it's doing great, and I'm very blessed where God has me, you hear me talk about it probably on the weekly basis of like, should we go scale it to make all this money, or should we pull back and just have peace? And you can have both. You can do both, right? But that's why I got that property. And I can sit here and tell you I've traveled all over the world. I've done a lot of different things. Sitting there with a cup of coffee, looking at the mountain, hearing the wind go. I'm good.
First, I want to give you props because you already described the cyclicalness of realizing that stillness, that peace is actually what makes you feel fulfilled. It's not necessarily the scale. It's not the chase. So you've recognized that, and you're, like I said, when we first started, you're facing things head on and intentionally trying to discover, how do I bring that feeling that I have when I'm sitting out there and that elk walks by into my daily life when I'm here in the valley doing my thing. Now, what do you think it is? And I think a lot of us need to give ourselves some grace, because we want to make a change, whether it's to heal from a trauma, a wound, to kick a habit, to whatever you want to put in that blank. And there's some of us that are able to make that switch and stick with it. But for most people, it is cyclical. You go back to it, and hopefully the cycles start to get shorter to get back to where you want to be. What is it that you think pulls you back into the cycle?
Oh, great. That's an easy question for me. It's being in Scottsdale, being in business, and just knowing, like we've talked about, going from being so broke that I have family members living off welfare, had no money, to then changing my whole life by 30 and being a millionaire, right? The reason I share that background is not to be like, look at me. It was, I can do anything like that I put my head to. I know I can accomplish it, because I never thought I could make what I'm making a month in a year, but now I've done it. And so now it's like, if I want to make $100 million, I know I can, because going from zero to where I'm at today was way harder than it would be to go from where I'm at today to $100 million. And then I get around other people that are doing business, and then it's the competitive juices in me, like, right? Like you get to hear, I go into masterminds and I'm like, all right, this person's doing $1 million a month. This person's doing a couple million a month. Okay, well, with what we have and where we're at, we could beat that. And so then it's that, you know, even now I have mentors and we pay to scale and grow the company. And it's like, well, you should be doing this in 12 months. And just to give you guys an idea, that's where we're at. I'm very blessed to be, but it's like, we can 10X the company. Well, to 10X a company, now I'm looking at if I wanted to exit, a massive exit. So then there's that piece of like, well, let's just do it. And then I'm like, here we go, let's go. And then now you're on this cycle of, so your company's here, you know, you can scale it, but you're going to have to bring more people in, more conversations. You have to do new training. What you've been doing won't get you to 10X. So now you have to go and start working with your team to do that. Then you just continue to push. And then every day, you know, if we're not at, you know, $500,000, $1 million a month, well, we're now that much more behind every month. And so then it's actually what it is. And it's easy for me. It's these fake goals and fake numbers that we put on because we could. And then that gets me drawn back in because I know I could if I actually wanted to. And then it's going, but then it's the timelines that get put onto it. And so then that brings me in. And then I kind of shared with you is what will happen when that happens is I'm around people. I get very competitive. I know I can do this, all this stuff. And I've been able to, again, through God's grace and God's will, but I've been able to will a lot of this to happen. I'm just gonna work 14-hour days. I'm just gonna do more. And where I'm learning is right now, even me doing that, it's not going to scale it to that piece. So then that's where, like, again, I find myself, and I told you, I always will journal, you know, like when I'm in those sections, what's happening? I'm not spending the time in the morning, like devotion, prayer, journaling. And then I take my dog for a walk and then I go watch the sunrise and then I start my day. Like that's when I'm at the most peace. When I'm in those modes, it's waking up. There's fires on my phone. I already got a bunch of stuff going on. I got 5:15. I'm already on phone calls. I'm already doing stuff. And then it's like, you're almost firefighting from the moment you wake up to the day I get out of it. Right. And then that's that cycle. And then every single time, like you said, it used to be longer cycles. I'm able to break out of it faster now. I got a lot of gray hairs.
What are you doing to break out of it faster?
Yeah. First off, it's recognizing it. And
you recognize it more quickly that you're stepping back into the cycle.
The cycle. I recognize, because here's how you recognize the cycle is you feel the cycle. It's the stress.
Yeah.
It's the stress.
I think sometimes even right before you feel it, there's a build up of like maybe a few mornings happen the way you described, that instead of starting your morning with intentionality of gratitude in your word and praying or whatever you're doing in that sense, to then stepping into a 5:15 phone call and right off to the races and putting out fires. I think maybe day one, day two, and you're a machine, so you're built a little different. I think that it stacks before you feel it because of how used to it you are. So how can we get to the point where before you even feel it, you're able to recognize it? Yeah, no, and that's a great question. And it's actually like what you and I have been talking about, I keep sharing with you, is the biggest thing is actually what comes is what do I want out of life? And the reason I share that is because I know I can get to what I just said. But what do you attach to, you know it, what would you feel if you achieved it or if you didn't achieve it? What do you attach to that? Great question. So that's actually what I fight, right? Is if you guys have watched like Ed Milet and all these people, or David Goggins, they'll talk about my biggest fear is I go meet God and God's like, hey, here's the man you could have been. This is what you could have accomplished, right? And then I feel what I've internally struggled, knowing that I've got myself from here to there, knowing that I could get there, that I'm almost like letting my own self down by not getting there, by not living up to that, because I also know I could help so many other people. But in the same fix of like, you and I both know, it's what I told you. I didn't have $66 to my name 7 years ago, right? So the reason I'm just saying that is I know now if I achieved it, it don't change my life. Like where I'm at now and what $100 million like would bring. Yes, like, and everyone's going to hear that and they'll be like, oh my gosh. But yes, I could buy nicer things, like bigger houses, bigger yachts, bigger stuff. I know that's also, I never did this, and I had a whole talk with Boris. We had to go up to the property the other day. If you guys watch the podcast, you guys see Boris, he works with me, and my whole conversation was why my whole company's grown and worked and done it is because truthfully, like out of my heart, like I never did it for the money. I just truthfully just wanted to help people. I'm actually glad you just said that before I said what I was getting ready to say. I know exactly what you're talking about, what Goggins talking about, because he kind of says whether you believe in God or some higher power or whatever, and then you die and you're in front of him and he says you could have done this. I don't believe God's ever gonna in that moment look at you and say, you could have accomplished more. You could have had more money. You know, I believe that in that moment, it's, if you would allowed yourself to trust me more, you could have walked more closely with me, and then your life would have looked like this as a result, meaning more peace, or you would have been a light to more people. So I don't feel like that expectation or that pressure should be put on what comes from God or our creator. I think that, which is often the case, our childhood experiences or people that are a parental figure or someone we look up to based on how they treat us is often how we assimilate how God views us or will treat us. And so I think, and I'm by no means an expert, I'm just guessing, and I might be completely off, but from Goggins' book or his relationship with his father, the way it was and how intense he was, I think that he more so correlates that to almost like God's this judgmental, high performance father or father figure or role model that you'll one day visit, and he's going to say, you could have been this. And that's where they're making that connection, when really, if they truly know their heavenly father, it's never going to be about your worldly accomplishments. It's going to be, how much can you trust me, and how much time do you want to spend with me, and how much do you love me? And so for me, a healthy view of God has helped remove that pressure, to let go of feeling like if I don't do more, that I'm somehow a failure or I'm failing God. And I know that also doesn't mean he wants us to be lazy. He's very, very specific about that. If you read your Bible, he gives us certain gifts and talents. And there's a parable in the Bible that talks about when he gives talents or gifts to, or money, however you want to quantify it. Most of the time people see it as money to 3 different people. And one guy invests it and goes and multiplies it. And then another guy like basically just like puts it into this one thing and doubles it or earns a little interest. And then the other guy just buries it. And something that I used to look at, because I can see where my connections of how I view God were, I need to be at a certain point from an influence or money or relationship standpoint with the people and how people see me. I just want to love God and use the talents and abilities he's given me to love him back. So I always misheard that parable as, oh, well, you got to go make it. Like you got to take risks and use his talents that he gave you to go do something big. And that's why he was disappointed. But until it really hit me when I was reading that parable later on in life, honestly, more so just recently, is the last guy that buries it, he says, because you're a harsh and like ruthless master, basically, is what he said. It was his fear of the backlash of that master that gave him the talent that kept him from doing anything with it. And that's because he didn't know that master well enough to know that he wanted you to go take a risk. And so where that I bring that down into an applicable scenario for me or anyone is, there's been many times in my life where I'm wanting God to like show me specifically what I need to do in a certain scenario. And I think it's good to ask for that. We ask for a direction. But what I would attach to that was like, if I get it wrong after I've been seeking him because I didn't hear him, that now when I mess it up or it doesn't go through, like he's gonna be like, I told you so. And there's like going to be this shame and judgment attached to it. And what he's actually giving us is the freedom to, yes, seek him and ask him. If we're not hearing, then run it through what we know it is in his word and who he says he is and how he wants us to live our life. He gives us that blueprint, but it might not be down to as specific as, what job do you want me to take? What car do you want me to buy? How much do you want me to spend on this or what investment to make or whatever. And so a lot of us get frozen, and he's actually given us freedom to use the talents and abilities he's given us. And that includes the freedom to go make mistakes. And that he's going to be with us in those mistakes, and we're going to grow through those mistakes, and we're going to start to learn and how to recognize that cycle and change the cycle. But I feel like it's almost an impossible cycle to break if we can't quantify and like actually look at the big picture as to what's causing and creating the cycle in the first place for ourselves, because all of them look different. Like all of us can get caught up in certain things that others just breeze through and it's never been an issue. But you have to do the work to understand the root of it and as to why that's a cycle for you, instead of just trying to treat the symptom and kill the cycle. I think that watching you step into that peace, step into that simplicity is become more and more prevalent as I've watched you heal. Yeah. And you know, you're a fighter. Like, I think a lot of people that would meet you would say you're optimistic, but here's the difference. I don't think you're optimistic because you think you get lucky, or that it's some health and wealth gospel because you love God, that everything's gonna be good. Yeah. You're optimistic because you know you'll fight.
Yep.
You know that if I need to, I can suffer in order to get to a certain point or a means to an end. And so you're not just optimistic that the world's all sunshine and rainbows and that you're going to get lucky. It's, I'm optimistic about the future because I know I'm willing to do what it takes in order for the future to hopefully look the way I want it to. Yeah. And I think that that's different, that a lot of people don't understand or necessarily able to separate and say, there's like the person that's just like the always slapstick, like, everything's gonna be fine. You know? And it's almost like they're living in oblivion of like this fake hopefulness. And then you get into the manifestation stuff. And I believe that the only reason why manifestation has any power to it is because you're just training your mind to start thinking and seeing things differently. Exactly. So when you do have opportunities that come your way, fear doesn't get in the way of your ability to execute and take advantage of something. You're not actually saying magic words that make it happen.
And one thing to that, just so, because I've done manifestation, I've studied it and all this stuff. The reason I just share this with everybody is, you want to make $1 million, you have to be the person and step into the person to make $1 million before you are that person. And what I mean by that is, like I've told you, the vehicles I've bought or whatever it is, I knew I was already going to have them before I got them. Like I can actually see that to a point. Now, I may not have known specific ones, but for example, I can be able to be like, hey, I knew, and I'm just going to share this with everybody. I knew from a young age I was different. And when I say that, it's because I didn't want to, I would be in my small town. I'm like, I'm not going to be like that. Now there could be ego with that. I can share with that. But I was like, I'm going to do something in this world. I know, I feel like I have God on my side. And it was always like, when tough times happened, I was like, I'm going to fight. Like that was always my family members, you know, I love my brother to death. When stuff gets tough, for me, it's like, here we go. Like that's the fighter in me. If someone's going after him, like I'm going to be like, what do you think you're doing? Like, and we grew up in that in our childhood, right? Somebody says something. Well, if my dad says whatever to my brother, he shrinks. When he says it to me, I'm like, I'll punch you in the face. Now, I've never been in a fight in my life. I'm a lover, not a fighter, but I'm like, that's who I am. Like, I'll be like, you don't get to say that to me. And I've always stood up for it. And like, even in my own life throughout this whole thing, it's harder now that I'm having more success, because you do get, the more success you have, just share out there, is more haters you will get. And I get a step into it. But it's like, I truly don't care if you like me or you don't like me. Like I truly mean that, because I like me. And when I step into that, when I go through this process of being optimistic, it's like, look at where I'm at. Like I told you, I walked outside. It's 70 degrees. I got my dogs with me. We're in Scottsdale. 10 years ago, I'm in negative 22 degrees because it's February in Iowa.
What do you tell that guy? What do you tell the 18, 35, 7-year-old? Doesn't matter, because everybody's phases of life are relative to what their life story looks like. Yeah. That's right now in 8 inches of snow and it's 4 degrees. Yeah. That doesn't have the ability to walk out and say, look where I'm at. Yeah. They hate where they're at right now. Yep. What advice do you give that person?
You got to change if you want things to change. I've been exactly in that spot. I remember 23 years old in Iowa, making $14 an hour doing landscaping, watching YouTube people live my dream life. Wanting to get to a point where I even got suicidal, because I'm like, what am I doing this for? But then I remember watching other people living an awesome life, and I said, why can't I? But what was happening is I was around an area, I was around an environment where everyone's drinking, everyone's working for $15 an hour, everyone's life sucks. And then you're around negative people, you start being negative and you start seeing that. And then I was like, I don't want that for my life. I don't want that for my life. And I never forget my best friend, Josh Doran. Shout out to you, man. I remember talking about wanting to move out to Arizona. But I had an excuse every time. And he sat there when I was sitting in his living room. Went and visited him. He lived about 2.5 hours. I sat there, I went and visited him, and I looked at him, and he looked at me one day, and he's just like, So what lie are you telling yourself that you keep believing? And I had for the first time have to sit there and say, I keep telling people I'm doing it. I stay around for my family, but you know my background with my family, and it was rocky at that point. But what if I actually went and failed? What if I came out here and I actually had a fail and maybe go back? And he was like, and?
I'm glad you said that, because I think there's a lot of us that are willing to call it your comfort bubble or even your manufactured reality bubble of, well, I think if I fully applied myself, I could accomplish this. I think that if I would have talked to that girl, I would have got this reaction. I think that if I actually started working out, I would look this way. Or even take it to another, I think that if I got in a fight, this would be the outcome. But they don't do any of those things because they feel better about, on the surface, they feel better and more, they feel safer staying in that manufactured bubble of, I think, but I don't really know. And then that's why they're so miserable on the inside, is because they know it's exactly just that. They haven't actually put themselves to the test to find out if they really have what it takes to do any of the things they think they're capable of, but keep telling people they think they can do without ever taking the actual risk of failing at doing it.
And this is going to hit to somebody out here. So I just want to share is most people are okay living in their current hell than going to the future of what if. And what I mean by that is I've watched it in my own family. I've watched people in my own family go into their current hell of, I call, hey, how's life going? How's your job? Sucks. Hate it. All this stuff. Okay, why don't you go try this? An excuse. Every time there was an excuse. And there's always been an excuse in that person's life. And they would rather stay and suffer in the current hell that they know than try something new. Because this is where when we talk about optimistic, in my head, I've always thought, what if it goes well? What 99.9% of people are going to do that are watching this? What if it goes wrong? And I get it with what we do and work with people that are making 50, 60, 80K. And now I get them hired at 150, 200 grand or whatever. It's the number one thing is mindset, self-sabotage. You all focus on the what if negative. I sit here and I try to focus on what if the positive. My whole life where I'm at today is because I've only focused on what if the positive. And
how do you get there though?
Well, let me just sit here and tell you, the negative's coming.
Yeah.
It's when you understand whether you do it good or do it bad, the negative's coming. But are you going to sit there and slouch your shoulders? Or are you going to big your chest and be like, I learned something today. I learned something. And guess what? I sit here and tell you why I'm sitting here and I can talk with so much confidence. I fail every day. I run a company. I have employees. I fail as a leader every day. I get humbled every day. I messed up. And you know what? I can never blame an employee because guess who hired that employee?
You do.
And so that's what people miss is if there's one thing I can take and just share with anyone, extreme ownership, Jocko Willings, extreme ownership. My life is, and I had to realize this, my life when I was 23, hating my life, it's because of me. It's because of me. Even now in my business, when you hear me get a complaint about, hey, I got this, at any moment, I can stop it. I can make less money. I can take all the stress that I have, I can stop. And so that's what I've always understood is like, I knew that I was just willing to grind and work. And I was around enough people when I first moved out here. When people see a good thing, they want to be a part of a good thing. I had a lot of very successful, financially successful, I should say, people around me that would like, hey, keep going. Are you doing that? And those little words of encouragement meant a lot. But also just what you said, that fighter in me, they literally say it all the time. It's pretty hard to work hard and try to do something really good every single day for it to never happen. And I was always just chasing a dream. Just so you know what got me here, I wanted to be fitness. Then I wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach in the NBA. That was 6 months or 12 months. And then I was like, I want to be a fitness professional. That was 6, 12 months. And then I wanted to go into med device sales. That was 6 to 12 months. And then I did it for 4 years. And then I was like, what if I ran my own business? And it's just been goal after goal after goal. But I always had something to chase and try to get better. But knowing that I was willing to work on it and willing to do it. And the one last thing I just want to share with you guys, because I always brought in my faith with this, is knowing and being able to see in my own life, I've had family members in the mental hospital. I've gone through a lot of tough things when I was young. And I used to do what everyone does. God, why me?
Victim mentality.
Why me? And then I remember driving out to Colorado at 23 years old to go work at Santa Clara University as a strength intern for free. I took a $5,000 loan from my grandma that I needed to pay back because I signed a contract that she was going to let me go work 80 hours a week, live with 11 people in an Airbnb and hustle every day. But guess what? I was in California. I wasn't in Iowa anymore. But the reason I share that story, I used to struggle so much with like family members in the mental hospital. Why my life was like, I didn't have the closeness that I wanted, that I saw my friends have. And I remember going to Colorado and driving through the mountains. And I'm driving my Buick Lucerne, no money, just a kid going to live his dream. And I'm probably going to go fail, but I'm going to go live my dream. And I remember in that moment, listened to the radio, and I had Torn Wells come on, and it was Hills and Valleys. Why I think about that song is I was like, in that moment, I was able to see, look at all those hard times, and I thought, God, you were doing that to me. Here I am driving through the mountains, and you're with me. And then that's when everything started switching in my mind. That I'm 22 years old, 23 years old at that time. You didn't do this to me. You're doing this with me. And now things are happening, but I believe things are going to keep happening. And I can say, oh, because of that, I could handle this. And that's how I've looked at my life now going forward every single day. So I have a hard thing go happen, and I can promise you guys, ever since that day, I've had a lot more hard things happen.
Well, what you're describing is a very common mental process for a lot of people, including myself at different phases of my life, that when a lot of bad things happen to you, or even just one, traumatic experience, that you say, if God is good and if you're there, then why did you let this happen? And the answer to that is because we live in a broken, fallen world that has free choice. And the terrible things that we see happening around us are a result of sin or of man or of brokenness. And instead of to point my finger at God and say, if you were real or you were good or who you say you are, this wouldn't happen. I was just isolating myself and pushing myself farther away from him when his heart was already broken, that it happened in the first place. And now I'm just breaking his heart that much more by blaming him for it. And what's available to us is what you just described, is to actually see that he didn't do this. Yes, it happened, and he allowed it to happen because we have free will. You say, well, then why didn't he step in? And he wants to walk through it with you, but he wants you to allow yourself to grow through it. And to allow him to help you grow through it. And I'm not going to pretend even for a second that there aren't still instances where I'm like, I still think it makes sense that you would step in here. I don't get it. We might not ever get that. But the more we get to know God, the more of a place we can get to accept, even though I don't understand, I recognize that I have this finite human mind that you created. I'm the creation, you're the creator. So therefore you know better than me. And because you are good, because you are a good father, because I trust you, even though I don't understand, it's not going to cause me to now walk away from you or deny you. It's going to actually cause me to cling to you, to draw closer to you, because I need to trust you that much more, because I know now there's even more that I don't know. I don't understand. And so I want to stay close to you because you're who I trust. You are my fortress. You are my refuge. And that's available to all of us. But if you're in that phase right now where you are pushing God away because you're mad and confused, I don't blame you for 1 second. But don't let the fact that you've done that make you sit in shame where you think he doesn't want you to come back. Because the second that you go from, I'm denying God, I don't believe in God, to, all right, I still don't understand you, and I'm pretty mad at you, but I need you and I want to love you. And I need your help to let, he grabs you, he holds you, he embraces you. And it might not even be in the way that you physically, I wanted him to literally show up in the room and pick me up and hold me. I wanted that. But what he has done as I've allowed myself to walk the journey of healing is he puts other people in my life that do that because they love him. And it's not because they're necessarily even some perfect person or some hero or whatever. It's that they love God and that they've been through things that they've allowed God to work in their life. And so therefore they resonate with the pain, or they understand what you're going through, and they walk through it with you. That's why God designed us to walk through things together and not alone.
And the one thing I do just want to share to someone out there is like, because people will see my go-getter spirit and all this stuff, but we've talked a lot about this, is it's because of anger. It was because of insecurity. Like I used that to fuel me, even though I would be like, no, I'm just happy. Like, and guys, I was positive. People loved working with me. I did get to see, like, I moved out here, it was sunshine. I was happy. But then when you start working on yourself and healing yourself, why am I working 14-hour days? Why am I trying to build this thing? Why am I? And just, I'm not going to lie to anyone. Like, there's a lot of hurt. There was a lot of anger. There was a lot of watch this. Right. And so that's what did help me climb to that. And I just want to share this out there. It's like, Alex Hormozy had a quote out there, and I think it was like, it's upward of like 80% of like entrepreneurs that like do very well and very successful have daddy issues. Right. And so the reason I just share that is because, there's always the like, watch this, or you said this, or whatever it is. And so I'm just sharing that not to be like, Jacob was always just like, hey, life was all peaceful. It was like, there's so many hard things. And it was just like, I just never was going to allow myself to play the victim. But I don't think for a second that there was a lot of fuel that was like, I remember my mentor that I work with, he's like, man, when I first started working with you, you had a lot of hatred in there, man. You had a lot of darkness in that. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of light in there too. But it's when before I started to heal myself, every time I'm in the gym, you stupid, all this dirty, like the stuff I would never say to another human being. That's what rang in my head every single day, every single workout. It's what drove me, all this stuff. Oh, you're tired? And then whatever negative thing I want to say. And then I started switching my mindset because I started working on myself and being like, and can I just share to someone, hopefully this is helpful, is people will be like, what made you want to work on myself? And I started going to therapy, which we talked about in the last time, but it was because I knew if I didn't, it would come out sometime in the future. And I've personally watched midlife crisis. Let me just make everyone's life easy. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not this. I've just trained so many people. Midlife crisis, people start having kids going through lives, and then they realize they're the people that they actually never wanted to be like, or certain things. And then they go through that time and have to process it. But at that time, they're already married, have a kid. And then it brings in stress on the marriage. And by that time, that partner's like, I might as well just leave because I can just care for the kid and all that and not have to deal with all this baggage. I've watched it 1,000 times. Sure. And so I say that is because I watch it, but I know I'm about to go down that same road. The person I don't want to be like, I'm going to become that person.
Kicking it down the road, I'm going to
kicking the can. Yeah. I just was like, I'm going to face that. And just so you guys know, another reason because of white buffalo has always held a special place in my heart because they're the one animal
walks into the storm.
That goes into the storm. I remember learning about that in church.
The way through the storm is to walk through it.
You're just kicking it down. So why not just turn around and go right into the snowstorm? Because we'll go through the storm, but we'll get to the sunshine a lot faster. And so that's really what, like, I can sit here and tell you, I've had more uncomfortable conversations, more tears, more things than I've ever wanted to. But it's also why I'm where I'm at, because I also know if I didn't, most people that are listening to this are having anxiety, having bad relationships, or having stuff because they're too scared to have that one hard conversation.
Or at least start them.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so I say that, but then
and they get easier, not necessarily easy, but you get better at handling it, doing it, because you face the snowball effect of how it's all accumulated, and then you start to face it. You start to realize that it's actually not as scary or as terrible as you thought.
You always survive it.
Yeah, you survive it. My mind, even as we're talking, it goes to extremes because we've been in scenarios where we've faced extremes.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it really was as bad as I thought. That's the truth. I know that's the truth for some of you guys. And so I want to simplify something here for myself, and I think it'll help others. It helps me. Is it gets kind of confusing when we're trying to be like, well, look, he's successful, and anger or comparison or whatever, like, he wouldn't have got there without it, you know? So what I want to make sure that is clear, because I had to really do the work to clarify this for myself. Anger, greed. There's a speech that Gordon Gekko gives in Wall Street where he says greed is good. So anger, greed, comparison, traumas, all those types of things, those energies actually do serve a purpose to get in shape or make money or, prove somebody wrong. Yep. But it doesn't bring you peace.
Come on.
And then you think, well, I'll use it for the time being to get me where I want to go, and then I'll find peace.
Yep.
But you're still kicking the can down the road because just because you have money now, there's been more time of damage done that you didn't face it, that now a snowball effect has taken place, and now you want to find peace because you used it to your advantage.
Yep. It's
still going to be just as difficult of a process. And so I think it would be ignorant to deny the fact that some of those things can actually serve a purpose in the world's race. It has for you and it has for me. I'd be lying if I said it didn't. It did on certain things, but it didn't ever bring me peace or joy or fulfillment at all. And it actually ramped it up because what I thought was going to bring me that didn't. And then I felt even more lost because it was like, well, I thought if I proved them wrong or everyone wrong or made myself more valuable or more successful, that then I would be capable of receiving love and I should be loved. But why do I still feel this way?
Yep.
And instead, you're going to be much better suited to face those things now. And then down the road, by using this new outlook you have that's actually healthy, to then decide what you actually want in life, what you want to accomplish, what you want to do, because now your motivators are coming from a healthy place instead of an unhealthy place.
Yeah. And to talk to that real quick is like, I just always tell the people I work with now, what happens if you accomplish everything you ever wanted to accomplish and you still feel horrible?
Exactly. Well, tell us the story about what we talked about at lunch before this, about the guy that was worth hundreds of millions of dollars and became a monk. That's a perfect application for this.
Yeah. So I think something is like, so I'm part of mentorships and it's always about scaling and growing. And, one of the guys I met, we're at this scaling workshop and it's all about make more money, right? And I meet this guy out of Australia and I was like, hey, what's your goal? What are you trying to grow to? And he's like, I don't know if I'm trying to grow. And I was like, wait, what? And that was like growth mindset, growth in person, right? That's what we're always trying to do. And I meet someone and so I meet,
paid to be here.
Exactly. Yeah. And I meet someone who's not, and I say, why would you say that? And he's like, mate, he's from Australia. And he's like, mate, I make over $1 million a year. I work 3 days a week. I get to go surf when I want to surf. I have a beautiful family with 2 kids. His wife was from France. And he's like, we go spend half the year with them and her family in France. He's like, I just live my life and I'm at peace. I'm happy and I could make more money. But what he helped me really realize in that moment was, what's another million? He makes $1 million. What's another million going to do for him? Right. And so he was the one who told me, hey, go read this book called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. And I used to go for walks, and basically, not to steal the whole book for you all so you can go read it, but basically to go over it, it was a guy who's making hundreds of millions of dollars, but he has a health situation and the doctor says you can either choose your career or you choose your life. Because if you keep doing what you're doing because of the stress and everything you're holding, you won't be here in 10 years. And then it talks about how he basically left the whole profession, sold his stuff, sold the Ferrari, comes back a couple of years later or a year later, and the people he talks to don't even recognize him. They're like, who is this person? And then he's like, him. He lost weight, he got healthier, he looked way younger. They're like, what's gone on? And basically he just shares like living like a monk, having peace, having, just gratitude and being where he's at. He aged less, like he looked way younger. He was the healthiest that he's ever been. He was doing yoga, like all this stuff. And that was when I was going through my journey of going to therapy because, I know, like, again, I always share the stories. Like they asked me, when was the last time you heard the birds? And I couldn't answer that. And it's like, I was just always going, right? And then I realized I'm changing my whole perspective on this because I'm now around a lot of business owners. I know people who've made hundreds of millions of dollars that are just chasing to make more hundreds of millions of dollars.
Have you ever seen the show Blue Zones?
I actually haven't.
Netflix?
No.
I think that's what it was called. And the purpose of this conversation isn't how to live forever. I think everybody knows that. But this guy did a study. So a blue zone is where there's like a cluster of people that have lived are over 100 years old.
Yep.
And so there's different places all over the world where these clusters take place.
Well, I know one of them's Italy because I used to go to Italy. And like
that is one of them. Yep. I watched this. It was fascinating to me. So what this guy did is he actually would go like live in those communities for months at a time and study each individual one. And then he made up like a charting system of how he tracked and measured what was going on in these people's lives, what they did on a daily basis, what they ate, all those types of things.
Yep.
And he went and did this in all these different blue zones all over the world. And what do you think one thing was that wasn't on any of the lists that were congruent or had any type of crossover? What do you think it was?
I imagine it's like...
That wasn't. I'm saying one thing that people would assume was there based on these types of conversations is why this fits into what we're talking about, but was not ever on the list.
Working.
How much money they had.
Yeah.
That was not a congruent part of any of it.
Yep.
So what he actually found was, and I'm not going to nail all of them because I haven't watched this in a couple of years, but it still stuck with me. They had a purpose. Even if they were 120, they had like a garden
or a lot of time
community service, or
they helped with some kids or stuff like that. That was the tribe world.
Exactly.
A lot of them.
They had a faith, so they believed that there was a higher power than themselves. They didn't eat processed American foods.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That was a huge one. They walked a lot.
Yep.
They weren't stagnant.
Yep.
They didn't sit in a chair because now they're retired and watch TV all day. They didn't, just sit there and basically just atrophy and rot. They constantly, every day, were always outside, moving around, walking. And some of them wasn't even necessarily intentional. It's just where they lived. They didn't have a choice.
And that's just so you know, that's why I love Europe. Like you go out there, 20,000 steps, that's not a problem because it's so made to walk. We're in Arizona, try to walk a mile, you'll get hit by a car. There's no sidewalks. The reason
tiny overstated.
But the reason I'm just saying that is like, for example, you can like when I've gone to France, in a 4-minute walk, I have everything I've ever needed in my life. I can go grab food from the farmer's market. There was a gym that we were at. We stayed in a place in France that it was by the beach, 10-minute walk to the beach. But like if you actually needed for what you needed to do for work, like you could in a 5-minute, there's restaurants down there, nightlife, like in a 5-minute walk, you had everything compared to it's like, think about where we're at right now. We want to go eat. Where are we walking to? And that's not over a mile. That you know what I mean? And so there's those pieces of it. But to your point of like, that's if you guys have never done this, and again, everyone's in different places, but like what helped me was I wanted to make money to experience life. That was like, again, I never chased the money for the money. I wanted to have it because I wanted to go to Europe. That's why when I went to Italy and like I share my experience, it was a dream come true. But I remember sitting there, I had just closed a big deal in med device sales. Life was good. I'm making my business is on the side. It's crushing, right? But 2 things I realized is number 1, nobody knows who I am, what I do, or anything, and they don't care. That was number 1. And then number 2, what I noticed being in Italy is in America.
Let's on number 1.
Yeah.
What's really cool about that is to actually take that and bring it back home.
Yeah.
Because you think that at home, but really it's the same as it is when you're over there.
Everyone's just focusing on their own zit, man. They don't see the zit on your face. They focus on their own zit. As Gary.
My daughter already
I didn't even see it, right?
Like, Daddy, what's this?
The reason I say that is that's Gary Vee, and then they talk about it, right? Everyone's focused on their own selves.
No one cares.
So no one cares. But then number 2, what I realized in that moment, because I've grown up in America, I'm in hustle culture. Now I'm going to be the first to tell you, I've lived the American dream from broke to not broke.
Watched you.
And I'm thankful for that. But what I've also watched is because of that American dream, that hustle culture, it never stops here. Right? And when I'm over there, what I realize in Europe is here, we live to work. There, they work to live.
Yeah, exactly. And on that, think what you want about Andrew Tate. For me, I agree with some things he says, other things I adamantly disagree with. But this is one thing he said that I feel like he was spot on about.
Yeah.
So money is just what buys you freedom.
Yep.
It buys you the ability, because time is finite.
Yep.
Time you can't buy more of.
Exactly.
But money buys you the ability to use the time that you are blessed with the way you want to. Yep. And so I remember a conversation I had with my brother Bryce, that this was 10 years ago at least, but we were just talking just like hypothetically about life. Yep. And I said to him, if you made X amount of dollars every year, that means it's enough for your family that's taken care of. You can take trips. You can have what you want. You can live not some crazy baller life, but like a very nice life with your family. Is that enough for you? And he said, absolutely. I'd be so thankful. And he goes, what about you? And I said, hell no.
Yep.
It's not enough. I legitimately thought I had to get to 1 billion just to be happy with myself.
Yep.
And now, as I've been growing and healing, I look at that conversation. I'm thankful it took place, because it gives me a sample set to compare to, because I can look at myself in the mirror and recognize where that came from.
Yeah, of course.
Why I thought I needed to get to 1 billion, and what that would mean to certain people.
To certain people. What's other. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. And now I'm so proud of him, because I've actually watched him step into achieving that hypothetical situation. And instead of what a lot of people do, they actually get it. And now they're like, nah, this is not enough.
Yeah.
He's not complacent. He's not lazy.
Yeah, he's still growing.
He's thankful.
Yep.
And he's not stretching beyond where he needs to, or taking unnecessary risk to chase.
Yep.
He's thankful and enjoying that hypothetical situation that has now turned into a reality for him.
Yep.
And where I've grown is that I don't attach my identity to numbers anymore. I refuse.
Yeah, 100%.
It is never going to be, again, for me, how much money I make, how many people follow me, or any of that type of stuff. It is truly, God, you've given, like we go back to the talent parable, like you've given me certain talents where I will feel gratified and successful and satiated is when I no longer allow fear to stop me from using the gifts to love others and for your glory.
Yep. And
because that's the potential he created me with to fulfill.
And the one thing to what you said is, first off, man, that's why I love you. And this is how I put the lens on me. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care how much money people make. I care about who you are as a man. Who are you as a husband? Who are you as a father? Like, everyone in this world wants to talk about, especially in America, how much money you make. And I've seen it. I've lived it. How much money you make. But what if you're a horrible dad? I don't respect you then. You're not a person I want to be around. You can make $100 million. I don't care, because that's not what goes for my value, because I can just be here living in Scottsdale, being all over the world. I see the people who've done it the wrong way to me. And this is my personal experience and what I want out of life. Because I've seen the people, there's all the TV shows. Please just go watch them. All the people who make millions, miserable, don't have a life. They're all doing drugs or whatever it is. For me, that's where my roots are coming down. Now, the one thing you said I want to just put out there for people, because this is going to be the common misconception. You talked about Andrew Tate's like, money just buys freedom. And everyone's like, the 3 words I hate the most in my life. And if I ever hear them, I call them out to every single person that ever says it to me. Must be nice. Victim mentality, let me lose. And because the reason I say that, when you say money just must be nice to have money, you don't have money because you're poor person mindset. Money is just an object, and it's a transfer of value. And when this all started hitting, so hopefully this can hit for someone else, when I started looking at cryptocurrency, I don't do crypto anymore, like all this stuff, but what it made me do was challenge money. And what I mean by that is when you actually go start looking at what is money's history. People used to trade rocks. They used to trade rocks or jewels or whatever it was.
Yeah, it turned to the gold system that's now gone away.
And then it's gold system, but now we have dollar bills. And then during all this crazy times, then now we just print more. Yeah. And so what happened though is I switched.
If you guys want more info on that, go to the episode with Leighton McWilliams, who's sat here and runs a gold company. He explains that very well.
Love it. I started listening to all these podcasts and they're, stop. You want to know why you're poor? Because you think about how you get paid by the hour. You think about, if I do this, I should get $25 this hour. I don't think that way. I do this job and this is my value. And it wasn't always that way. That's what got me into sales and doing all this stuff. But then I started to be able to sell things. And then I'm watching me be able to sell a product and be like, hey, I'm going to make $1,000 off that. That's
interesting. Let's simplify that even another step further. Okay. So what you're actually doing is where I was going with the Andrew Tate thing is he's defining money buys you freedom. Well, like for me, I thought I had to have a certain number.
Yep.
And I think that it makes sense to sit down and think, what do you want your life to look like? And then that's the number you attach, because that is part of it. Like it does, you have to make money to build
1,000%.
And so when you, instead of just throwing some crazy number, you don't know what you need to do the work to find out and think, what do I need and what does that number look like? And now what does it take to get there? So if it is the person that says, you know, I need to make whatever, $110,000 a year. And then you can quantify that to what they're willing to trade their time for. But what's beautiful about what you just said at the end is, I'm not doing it to chase the money. I'm doing it to do it anyways, because I want to serve the person or love the person. What you've already done is you've already broken the system. Because the system tells you in order to have freedom, you have to buy your freedom.
Yep.
What you're saying is, even while I'm trying to earn money, I still have freedom because I enjoy what I do and there's purpose to what I do. And it doesn't even matter if I make money in this instant, this transaction off what I've done, I still am glad that I did.
Yep. And let me help real quick with listeners right now. Everyone I always talk to, oh, I don't have money, or that's easy for you to say, or
they're so sassy.
It's just sassy. You know, they're all a little sassy out there, right? Every single day I talk to our team about this, and I help people get into sales. Every single day, someone sells a private jet.
True.
Every single day, someone buys a mansion. So when you switch the mindset of stop going from scarcity to where it's out there, that's number one, right? Money is literally everywhere. They print it, right? So to any person who's watching this, it must be nice, or, oh, it's easy for you to say. No, it's your mindset that's keeping you broke. That's the number one thing. They've always seen it. Now, let me just make this really clear. Not everyone's trying to make $1 million or much, and I know that. But let me just tell you what I see, because I work with human beings every day. The number one number I always hear, hey, what can I do? What's the first goal for you? $100,000. But here's the easiest thing I can tell you to every person. Every single time someone says $100,000, I go, great. How much money is that a month?
They don't know.
They never know. So just to make your guys' life easy.
They also don't know quick math.
Yeah. But it's not as simple. It's $8,333, right? But the reason I say that is, so everyone wants to make 100K. Why? Because 100K is something in our system in America, right? Now it's not, but back in the day, you made 100 grand, you're rich or whatever. So the reason I'm just saying it's $100,000, all right? $8,333. Okay, great. What is that a week? Right? So you want to make 100 grand. What is that a month? Okay. What is that a week? What is that an hour? If you're going to work a 40-hour work week. All right. Let's say it's $62 an hour. And again, I'm just shooting numbers now, but because I haven't done the hourly forever, because I don't do hourly. But the reason I'm just sitting here saying is, you find out what that difference is. Now go find out what you do. So if you're already, let's say, making 75 grand, what would make you an extra $25,000 over 12 months? So now you have to do 25 grand divided by 12. That would just be just over probably about 2,000, maybe $50, right? What can you do in your life right now? Could you go work some side gigs? Could you drive Uber? Could you do something else to make an additional $2,000 a month? And what would that look like for a week? Oh, it's $2,000. I need to make an extra $500, $525 a week. What can I do? But if you're stuck in a mindset, because I help people get out of this, is because I've been there and that's why I live it. If you're stuck in a mindset where you're thinking hourly and $500, I worked landscaping. I worked 40-hour weeks to do $525. It sucked. But then what people don't do is they don't go get and this is what we teach. Why I will always be financially set, why I'll always do it. I have a skill and I can sell anything. That's a skill that's not easily taught. And I've paid a lot of money to be even with our company, people will never see this and you know about it. I've paid over $250,000 in the last 2 years to get me where I'm at today. Most people I never meet won't even spend $1 because they're all this. But what the rich and what I've watched the rich do, they're happy to give $1,000 to go make $10,000. They're happy to go give 100 grand if it's going to make them $1 million, because they can learn the skills and learn the stuff. So the reason I just share that is I just wanted to help some mindset people out there.
I think that's
to get you there. Because again, the reason I share all of that is because I am living proof of I can have freedom. I tell you the car I want, I can go buy it today. But I know that also won't fill here. It won't make me happy. And also the question I have to ask is, what stress will it bring to me? Me having that car.
What are you trading for?
What do I trade for? And that's where I'm at this really unique life moment. We have companies trying to invest in my company. I have people trying to give me money, and it's amazing. I don't need it. We're scaling. And what I just told you, I know I can get my company to here. Now, what I have to personally say is, what's that cost? Mm-hmm. And not what does it cost financially? What's it cost in here? Mm-hmm. What's it cost up here? Right? Because I used to be the guy who's like, I'll sacrifice the next 5 years if I could sell it for this much. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've changed my tune to be like, no, I still want it. Because I think about my daily, I think about my current life. Literally why we're working out tonight or working out today. I was talking to one of the guys and it's like, this makes me happier than making a massive sale. Mm-hmm. It's the simple things, what I've learned. And so like, what's interesting is like my company's at this really cool point in its life where it can 10X, but I also could get rid of a lot of the stuff we have going on in it. And Jacob can just go and make a beautiful living mm-hmm. and just live an everyday life. Mm-hmm. And there's honestly, I'll tell you, it matters what day you talk to me. There's some days I'm not there and some days, but what I'm now focused on, what we've talked about, what do I want out of life? Mm-hmm. Where am I trying to get to?
Exactly.
Because what I shared with you, and maybe this will help somebody, is how the system is made up is, let's just say you go make $1 million. Well, you still got taxes on the $1 million, but what you can do is you can go invest into your own company, tax write-offs, buy vehicles that are work vehicles, all that good stuff, right? But then you can also go buy property, and we can buy property, and then that's going to depreciate so we don't have taxes. But what you're actually doing, and this is what I've learned, is, but what you're actually doing in that moment is you're now just signing on to another bill, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So now I can pay it now instead of paying the IRS, I can get my company to have that. Mm-hmm. But on top of it, what most people are going to do is then they're going to go buy that, then they're going to go make that a business, then they're going to have somebody run it and do all this stuff. And now you just do it. And that's great that you can scale that. Mm-hmm. What happens when you have that and something goes wrong? What happens if that, like, that's what you're bringing on. And so what I've actually been talking to my team about, and even my family, is, heck, we got a beautiful property up north. Hey, we have this. Like, hey, I could pay everything off and we just have a company that runs at really good profits and I just live my life.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I'll sit here and tell you what's super interesting is I was the guy who was like, I can get a private jet. I'll do it. I know I could. Mm-hmm. What's it cost? What's it cost here? And like coming from Iowa, growing up with humble beginnings, like I had to talk with my girlfriend. She's like, hey, she has a son and she's like, I'm going to buy him this. I'm like, when he turned 16, he gets this vehicle. I was like, I had a $500 car. Mm-hmm. My dad bought me, I used to get eat on by squirrels, and then that's how I grew up. Mm-hmm. And that's how I knew. And so for me though, going back to the reason I share all that background and people for the money piece is go get the money. I hope it works and I hope you make it whatever you want. But what I've been really praying a lot about is, I know me. I could get the private jet, wouldn't change my life, because guess what? I've got the house, I've got the truck, I've got the stuff. I don't feel no different. Mm-hmm. I don't feel any different.
I don't think that there's anybody that's ever watched one of your podcasts long enough, or the first episode that you're on here, or even just today, and doesn't quickly recognize that you have a motor in you that's rare. You have, like you said, invested $250,000 in the last 2 years in developing your skill set of sales as a leader, as a business operator.
And growing a company.
Yeah. But for the person that sits there right now and is like, well, I don't have his motor. I can't invest that kind of money into myself. And that's relative too.
And just so you guys know, I had $66 to my name 7 years ago. So where you guys are watching it, I was you. So, exactly. So I didn't either.
That's where I'm going with this is I think doing the self-reflection of understanding who you are, what makes you tick, what you want, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what you're willing to work on, what you want out of life is the first step to a lot of this.
Yep.
Now, before they get to fast track to the amazing scenario you just described, where it's like we're achieving success and now we just wanted to decide if we want more success because that means more headache or potentially more problems. Yeah. How do I get to where I get to be in that place?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that first you need to decide if you even want to get there. But the other thing is, let's say you sit down and I like to do things a little bit old school. My dad always wrote on pads. And so I still write stuff down on pads by hand. And so let's say you mapped that all out. This is what I want to do. This is where I want to live. This is the type of family I want to have. These type of hobbies I want. This is what my life balance looks like. It's how much I want to work.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to develop your plan. Now let's step into what usually kills that plan, what usually holds you back from being able to step in to execute that plan, because that plan's just toilet paper until it actually gets put into implementation. And we talked about it at the beginning, that oftentimes it's people's fear of failure, right? So you have to then, let's take that even another step deeper. It's not even necessarily that they're afraid to fail. It's that they're afraid to have other people see them fail.
It's the opinions of others.
Because if they told you, hey, you're going to try and you're going to fail, but nobody's going to know about it,
you try.
you're not going to be as scared. You're going to be like, okay, I can handle that. But if you think, oh, well, they've always told me I can't achieve this, and then I tried to achieve it, and then I failed, they're going to say, I told you so, and I don't know how I'm going to be able to bounce back or handle that. So once you develop our plan, we now need to develop a healthy sense of self where we can't allow other people's expectations or other people's judgment or other people's opinions to hold the weight in our lives that they've held for such a long time. Even if you became a monk, like the guy from the story, and you made your whole life about helping other people, at some point, you're still going to face judgment in some way.
Well, somebody thinks you're dumb that you sold a Ferrari.
Yeah, whatever.
Right.
Like, there's going to be people that are still going to come at you.
Yeah.
It's impossible to self-insulate to the point where you're never going to have someone talk badly about you or judge you. And so we've got to get to the point where we let go of caring so much about what other people think and step into the power of being able to be at peace and knowing who we are and not caring what that means to someone else. Now, you might already have a family. You have a friend group. You have a lot of different spheres of social circles that you're in. The hard part of this is now, okay, I stepped into the mindset, I stepped into the implementation, but now I'm actually facing where the people start saying things. The way I'm able to honestly not be a slave to others' expectations also means I might not necessarily be able to show up for them the way they want me to in a lot of ways. Or that I'm not going to be in the same victim mentality that they've been in because it feels familiar anymore.
That's good, man.
Now, you're going to face that, and a really, really important skill that we all have to work on and all have to develop through this process is the ability to communicate. Because that person that might judge you or say something that they might not even feel like they're judging you, but it hurts you to hear, they just might not simply understand. And so it's not your job to make them understand, but it is your job to communicate it in a way that they can understand. And if they choose to still judge and not see things the way you do, that might then lead to a hard scenario where you have to be willing to go different ways. If there's someone in your life that says they love you, but loving you means that that's attached to them holding you into an unhealthy scenario that's abusive or keeps you in that victim mentality, you need to be able to communicate with them that I don't want to live this way anymore and I'm stepping out of this and I want you to come with me. But if they're not willing to, you have to be able to still take those steps. That doesn't mean that they're dead to you. That doesn't mean that you don't still care about them. But you can't allow those hooks that they have in you right now to keep pulling you back every time you take a step forward. And you have to also get to the point where we allow ourselves to take that step without feeling guilty. So I just watched, and I was telling Eric this a little bit ago, I watched this. Most of the time when I watch Theo Vaughn, it's because I think he's the funniest dude on the planet.
He's so good.
Like, he's so quick. He's so sharp. And a lot of people, even like his style of humor, they think, oh, he's kind of a dumbass or whatever, but he is so good at what he does. People don't realize how much intellect that takes. Like, I've even seen other huge comedians sit across from him and they can't keep up because he just keeps cracking them up. And they're trying to play that little chess game of like being witty and going back and forth and that shock, and they can't hang. He's good at what he does. But what I got to see in this episode was Tony Robbins and Theo Vaughn. Like a guy that's made a career out of being a life strategist, very, I don't want to say very serious, but he is intense and he does make jokes, but it's really about, like, let's face our problems.
Yeah.
And oftentimes a comedian masks their problems with humor.
Yep.
They make themselves and others feel better with humor instead of actually having to face it. And where I want to give Theo props and what's unique about him is he's experienced all this success by being funny.
Yep.
But he also, in the last couple of years, he's publicly allowed himself to show his process of killing his addictions, learning about his emotions. Like in this episode, he had come off antidepressants because he realized that I couldn't feel the way I needed and wanted to feel in relationships to really know what I wanted from a relationship. Yep. And so I wanted to see this because I'm like, what is this? He's done ones with Jordan Peterson and things like that. But I was like, I really want to see what this one looks like. And I've probably watched it, I think 3 or 4 times in the last 2 or 3 days. And the reason why I have is because Theo allows himself to be vulnerable enough in front of his own audience and Tony's, which is millions of people, that he's crying in this episode. He makes a few jokes that are still funny, but he really allows Tony to talk him through why he has been on
all the cycles. Yeah.
And what does it take to break the cycle? And so he talks him through things like on a weekly basis. What negative emotions do you experience? Not once a year, once a month, but every week. And you had to make a list. What negative emotions do you experience? And then now what positive emotions do you experience on a weekly basis? And now be honest with yourself. Which one of those wins? Which one's more powerful? Is it the negative list or is it the positive list? Mm-hmm. And then he talks him through, okay, you're experiencing success. You're doing the hard work. You're facing addictions. You're getting off your antidepressants. You're stepping into trying to find who you really are and what makes you feel satisfied, gratified, at peace, like we've been talking about. And what he uncovers was something that I thought was very, very unique that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about. And that is that what Theo realized is that there was like this, you hear some people talk about your inner child.
Yep.
But it doesn't necessarily always just stay that little child or like that little boy. Like sometimes it actually, like you want to protect that child from the childhood traumas or things that happen in your life. But now you've gone through a phase of life where the victim mentality syncs up with that child that's now grown into an immature man. Yep. And he talks about how he would feel selfish by walking away from that man, immature man, that it almost feels like he can't step into actually embracing and living this new life he wants to live and be this new person and allow himself to be happy because he feels like he's walking away from who he's always known. Yep. And so I'm going to put ourselves on the spot right now. Yep. If we took a second and let's do that, let's look internally. Yep. Are there any areas or lies that we're still telling ourselves that doesn't allow us to step completely out of the cycle and into who we know we've created to be, and to allow the blessings and to see the things that God's given us the ability to accomplish, but we don't actually let ourselves enjoy the win or enjoy the hard work, the fruits of the labor? Yeah. What would that look like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. When I ask, because I do this actually on a monthly basis. Okay. I sit on my Jordan Peterson, sit on your bed and face your monster. Yeah. And you have to ask it, and that's what's every month helped me grow. I think one of the biggest things for me, truly perceiving how I make the people closest in my life feel when I grow. And so what I mean by that is when I grow, what's that mean for the people that I love the most?
I'm following you, land it. I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
And so that's the thing that I think about the most, because there's so many different facets when I say that one sentence, because there's so many people in my life that I love and truly care about. But there's also, like if I continue to grow, if we do grow this company to be what I know it to be, right? Because nobody thought it would be where it's at right now, where I know it can go. What does that look like? right? And
To
what,
the point that you'd be willing to stifle your own growth to protect those people?
and that's been a constant conversation for myself.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's been a big thing that I've thought a lot about.
What would stifling that growth even do to protect them?
In my head, because again, these are all the fake scenarios that come up in a head, right?
It's fake.
And so, but it's like, well, if I do this, do I still have certain people work for me? Because this is what people miss. And just so we can all be clear, number one thing when you go, and Eric knows this, I've talked to him. I've talked to our whole team. What's got you here won't get you there. If I go this, you guys aren't my friends, but guess what? When I bring VCs or I bring people in, they don't look at friends. They look at assets and liabilities. Buddy.
Yeah, that's for sure. They don't.
And they don't care. I may love somebody. I may care about that person.
Yeah.
But if I'm truly looking to take my company where it needs to be and all this stuff, are they able to stay? Because we can bring other people, but sometimes it will be like, hey, if somebody's capped out, hey, can't. And so the reason I'm just saying that is he's heard me say that on calls with our employees. That's an internal struggle I have. And thinking of, if I take this, do I get to keep people with me? No, yeah, that was
So I think what comes into play there is that ability to communicate.
Yep.
And just from right now, that exchange, you can tell you've been communicating with him.
Yep.
And what'll happen, because on the private equity side, I used to be in that world.
Yeah.
What you would see is a certain investment group would come in and they have a way of doing things. And they, like you just said, the most of the time, they don't care at all about relationship dynamics.
Yep.
Most of the time they look at relationship dynamics as a potential hinder.
Yep.
And so they will clean house. They do bring in their own people in, or they cut rate, or they bring in younger, or whatever
Yep.
they do. But before that deal is done, whoever's in charge of saying yes or no to that deal does have the power to put into that deal that I'm going to be willing to do this or not.
Yep.
And they're faced with the decision.
Yep.
Am I willing to let this happen, or I'm going to protect everybody with the way
Yep.
this deal is structured?
Yep.
And so that's something you'll be able to do.
Yeah.
That's something you'll be able to do.
There's a lot of that. And then there's also just like, just personal people in my life as well,
Yeah.
right? It's so many different facets of, you grow and the success and all the stuff. But like I can say it to you all, like that's, so I'm 30 now and I just turned 30. And the reason I share that all with you all is when I turned 30, I took myself to my Flagstaff property, a couple months afterwards. And especially in the new year, January, I was like, okay, I'm 30, I'm all this stuff. I got a beautiful girlfriend. My life's looking a little bit different. What do I want my life to actually look like now?
Yeah.
And they're like, again, let me just make this really clear. The hungry person who knows they can make $100 million is still in here.
Yeah.
There's also the person who's like, I want to be the best boyfriend, best future husband and father and son. Like that's a big thing for me now is like, I haven't had a great relationship with certain family members. It's like, there's a chance my mom's moving out here. She's interviewing for a job and like, what a special moment for me. And so I'm starting to step more into that. And so it's easy for me to say
the question is if it comes to a point where it culminates to a choice,
Yep.
do you know what choice you'll make?
Oh yeah.
What will it be?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. For me, it's
therefore that choice itself no longer can hold power over you because you already know the decision you'll make. If
Yeah.
it ever comes to a fork in the road where you have to choose to go to 100 or you have to choose to be the man you just described, you already know which choice you're going to make.
Yeah.
So take the power away from it.
Yep. 100%. And just so you guys know, like this is the stuff we can talk about, all the stuff. This is still coaching and still mentor. Like even now,
I'm talking to myself as I say that to you, because I'll be vulnerable and admit that one of the lies that I tell myself is that I can't allow myself to feel any sense of accomplishment, because if I do, then I'll become arrogant. And I have to do everything I can to make sure people don't think I'm arrogant, to misunderstand me and to see me as humble, because I have so many wounds in my personal life of being mislabeled or mischaracterized. And so I feel like I have to walk this like perfect line to mitigate how much I'm attacked. And all I do is make myself miserable. And I don't allow myself to be like, man, you've gone 15 years now without missing your routine.
Yep.
like, or whatever you want to put in that blank that you accomplish. And it's not to now bring in pride of look at me, but it's also not healthy to not allow yourself to appreciate the fact that you've been willing to make the hard choice, or to not allow yourself to know, I've already decided I'm going to be that man no matter what decisions put in front of me. Yeah. So therefore I don't have to, whether some people even self-sabotage or allow complacency to creep in, because I know if I really go for it, I'm going to be faced with that decision. And you already know what you're going to do. Just like I know that now. And that's what's starting to bring me more freedom and peace, is that I'm stepping into, no, I know who I am. No, I know the decisions that I make on a daily basis. I know how they stack up. I know the decisions I will make in certain scenarios. It doesn't mean I'm perfect. I have to rely on God for that. He's the only reason why I'm able to start making good decisions, because I didn't used to. And the only reason why my decisions look differently now is because they come from a different place. And I know I can't just go to self to always do the right thing. I need to go to him and submit myself to him for his guidance and his help. But I know that I'm going to do that. And even if I do mess it up, I'm still going to have grace. And even if someone does misunderstand me, that's okay.
And I've never met one person who knows you who's ever even somewhat mentioned arrogant.
Thank you.
And that's one reason I love you so much. And that's why I love walking this walk with you, is because you truly are one of the best men I've ever met in my life. And that's why I share that with so many people. But the one thing I do want everyone to hear is what we just said is, I've gone to therapy, I've worked on stuff, but guys, like, this is why I love entrepreneurship, but also I love life. It never stops. You can do all the work, and guess what? A new challenge. There's a new health thing in our life, in my family's life. It's hard. We've never walked it together. Right. And so I just say that is like, you just told me, like, I just want everyone, when I say $250,000 to go, and it's to continue to get that. I'm poor. I came from nothing, and it's continue to go grab skills and continue to go there to the next level. But it's the same reason I still go talk to mentors and I still have people on a level, because your body will literally try to take you back to everything you've ever known. And there's also, like, again, what I believe is like, there's someone there, you got an angel and you got a devil, and the devil's going to keep reminding you why you're not good enough, why you shouldn't be where you're at,
why you don't deserve to be loved.
Look at what you did in the past. Look at all this stuff, and all the things. And you have to continue to make the choice every day that you're going to step into what God made you to be. And you now can trust you. And that's, I think, the one thing you were just saying right there, and what we're getting to, we trust ourselves now. Doesn't mean we still don't struggle.
Yeah, you need to put checks and balances in place.
Checks and balances. But you can trust yourself now to know if you did get that opportunity, you know what decisions you're making. And so, and I wanted to share that because I think that's a big thing. But one thing I do want to share, and I want to just touch base because you've mentioned this about people not caring. Like, here's the one thing I'm going to share with everyone. You can say people, you don't care. Like, I tell you guys, like, I like me. It still don't feel good to read the messages or have people like I could
probably just swipe down on my notifications right now and have like 5 people saying something.
Like,
get it to me.
Like I told you last week, like I'm in medical sales in the nicest possible way. It's some of the biggest douches you're ever going to meet in your life, because it's all people who are usually
what motivated them to get into that.
Motivated. I'm a former athlete. I'm a former professional athlete. I'm a former person who needs to make a name for myself so I can have a rollie. I have a car. I'm going to flex on you. I'm going to take the hot girl out. Like, that's who I'm up against every single day. And then they come and see what I've accomplished, and they're like, F this dude. I'm better than him. I'm smarter than him. I'm better looking than him. I'm whatever it is that they're going to have. And then they're going to tell me why I suck. Like last week at 5:15 a.m., I get on my Instagram, and then that's when the message came through. I didn't get on at 5:15, but I looked, and someone at 5:15 told me I'm the biggest moron on this planet. I suck so bad. What's wrong? All this trash. And I'm like, that poor person is listening to my podcast in an OR room, making under $80,000, absolutely miserable and hating his life. And I said something that he was already triggered in his life, but I said the one thing that finally got him triggered enough to go over the edge to message me. The reason I share that to every single person is, as we have more success, my name gets run through the dirt more. Why is that? It's just the law of averages. It's the law of numbers. I'm put in front of a lot of people now than I was 2 years ago. Guess what? I'm not a fit for everybody. Guess what? When I'm direct, or I'm like, yeah, you want to go to the start line and I'll crush your soul, like the brokenness still in my life. Sure. Guess what? Someone who used to play Division I ball doesn't like that, but mother, I'll take you. And I'm afraid. And I'll get those people. And then I'll have people who come into our program, right? And they're the victim. even though I've tried to pull them out of the victim. But now, guess what? It doesn't matter what I say, they're going to always play the victim. And then my name's going to get ran because there's already people who hate me, right? And so what I always just have our team say is, guys, like he knows this. This has been on our talk for the last 6 months. As we get bigger, expect more hate messages. That is the cost we're taking here. And everyone that's listening to this, I did the exact same thing. Normally, when you want to make a change, it's the people closest to you that you're going to have to do a biggest check with. The people that are saying that they love you the most are normally the people also trying to keep you in the shell the most. Now, that's not me saying divorces. That's not me saying never talk to your parents again or cousins or friends.
That's what we said, communicate.
But
learn how to communicate adequately.
But you might not spend as much time with those friends. You might have to separate because what's happening is you're making a choice to leave. You're trying to leave that current life you're at. And what I will sit here and tell you is when you climb, there's crabs in the buckets that want to keep pulling you down. But what you have to understand is what you're going through is literally a requisite to get where you want to get to. If you always did what you always done, you always get what you always got.
Right.
You got to change it up. And because of you changing, that's going to make people, and it's nothing to do with you, it's going to make other people feel insecure. And because of that, there's usually going to get words said about me. I've gone through it in my own life. I've had the people who are the closest in my life. When I decided to go to that trip in California to go chase my dream as 22 years old, the most important man in my life calls me 2 days before and tells me I'm the biggest selfish asshole because I'm leaving my family. Now, I had a decision in that moment to be guilted and to stay for him and his insecurities, or to go follow my dreams. Now, let me sit here and tell you all, that call motivated me for years.
What's interesting is somebody could have a call like what you just had, that someone says that to you and you have the response inside that allowed it to motivate you. And then there's people that get just praise showered on them nonstop. You're the most beautiful, you're the most talented, you're blah, 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 but they don't ever even believe it. And so therefore they're still bogged down and they're a victim. And like, it's still exactly what we've been saying. It can't be what's coming from out there. It has to be what you believe about yourself in here.
What's the internal voice in your head saying?
Exactly.
And until you work on that, it won't go. But just understand your brain's not meant to make you thrive. It's meant to make you survive.
You're right.
You can get 1,000 awesomes. You're amazing, but you'll get that one piece of trash, and you're going to focus on the trash. And so what you have to continue to do, because now we go through it even more, right? Hopefully I can share this to go. As we grow, we're always going to get hate. And then I get hate more often than not, right? But then for example, when I say that though is, I'll get a message and I got 10 messages saying how great I am. But I'm going to focus on the one message of the person who's never met me say why I'm such a horrible person because they watched one 6-second TikTok about me, or there's a clip that's taken out of context, right? There's that piece of it. But what I want you all to hear is what truly helps me as I'm going through this current journey, as I'm going and growing a company and doing it. It doesn't matter where I go, what company I have, your competitors, there's always going to be stuff. But the reason I'm sharing this is watch the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl just happened last week. Taylor Swift, love her, hate her. Donald Trump, love him, hate him. Patrick Mahomes, love him, hate him. What I'm saying right there and what I've been able to help with me, Kendrick Lamar, love him, hate him. Drake, love him, hate him. The prerequisite of getting where you want to go, and like for us, growing a company, getting it, you have to have hate. It's going to happen, because the thing that's always drove me is if you don't have haters, you're not standing for something. You're being complacent for everybody else and you're not trying to offend anyone. By me just being a man who was broke to not being broke, who says, I will crush anyone who gets in my way and I will make whatever, I just offended 18 people. But one of my mentors told me this: define who you have as haters. People who don't like me, insecure, lazy, victim mentality people.
Do you care about what they think?
No, and that's
the power away.
That's it. I'm still working through this because I'll get those messages. I got some pretty great workouts from those.
Sure.
Because it goes back to what I'm always fighting. That same man who's the most important person in my life.
Is there any version of that broken or immature man within you that you still want to see change or heal?
100%. Just so you know, that's
there always will be.
That's it's the constant. Because let me just sit here and tell you, for everyone out there, you never had this talk. And to just put it out there is like, I don't have a close relationship with my dad. I never have. For pieces we did, I should say, but like since I've been an adult, we never have. I've been told why I'm a piece of trash. There's just a lot of things, but he never remembers it. And going back to the David Goggins, where they talk about he was so broken that the dad actually didn't remember, and that's okay. It doesn't matter how much I continue to work, doesn't matter how many times I heal, doesn't matter how many times I say I forgive him.
And the reason why he doesn't remember, to clarify, is oftentimes they came from a traumatic, painful scenario. And then when they replicate that type of action, it takes them back to their trauma. So they don't even realize they're doing it to you because they're still so fixated on their own pain.
And it's truly blocked out. Like they sometimes can't remember it. But to that piece, with all of that said, I'm always going to sit here and wish I said I had a dad that just loved me, that wanted the best for me, that instead of me at 15 years old, he's asking me what to do. Maybe I could go to him and ask him what to do. So it doesn't matter what and how old and how healed and all this stuff. I recognize that. But what I do recognize is I have the opportunity for that little 4-year-old boy or whoever I have in my life. I can be that man that I wanted. And that's what I step into every day.
You are.
And so for me, that's what I continue to focus on. But I want that to be shared to everyone. It's like, it's always going to hurt. There's always going to be those pieces, and there's still always going to be a little brokenness in me. And I know that. But that's what I'll sit here and tell you as I continue to walk through this life, as I walk through entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is the ultimate guide of self-growth. Because all you have to do is get punched in the face every single day and still get up for the next day. It's a blessing to be one, but that's the life I choose. But because of it and why I stay in it, why I don't go just get a safe W-2 job. I just told you guys I'm a CEO and I fail every single day. I also know if I do what I'm supposed to do and I'm learning and I'm continuing to grow, the man that I was a year ago, I'm not even close to who I am today. But I also know the man and the leader and the CEO and boyfriend and all that, 12 months from now, watch out.
That's that Matthew McConaughey speech that he gives about he always wants to chase his future self.
They ask who,
that future man.
Yep. They ask him, they say, hey, who's your hero? He's like, I don't know. He asked me in 5 years, right? Yeah. And then he's like, oh, it's me in 5 years. And then they ask him 5 years later, like, hey, did you become yourself? And he's like, not even close. Yeah. And he's like, ask me again in another 5 years. And he goes on to realize I'll never actually become that man, but I'm always going to be chasing him. And that's, I embody that because I'm so much better than I was 2 years ago, but I'm not even close to the man I want to be, to the friend I want to be, to the business owner I want to be, to the husband and the boyfriend and everything, all that, and the role model. And that's what continues to drive me. But why I say this is why I've made the money and I did all the stuff that I wanted to. Literally, you got to see it. I walked out of here. There's a client I trained for the last 3 years that now her son comes and trains with you, and it's amazing. And she sat there and she's like, it's crazy. I've watched you literally accomplish everything you've told me you were going to. And I get to sit there and I reflect in the parking lot and I say, yeah, thanks. And it's been amazing for me. As I'm growing in my thing, I know where the next steps for my company, where I want to take it and what I want to accomplish. But I also know what the big things in my life I want to accomplish and the man I want to be in that. And that's why I continue to tell everyone about chasing this piece, because you see on this podcast, I get heated. I got the motor. I got the bulldog that they always used to say when I go to therapy. You got the bulldog that's backed up against the pit bull that's backed up against the wall that's ready to fight. I got that. That's my life. But it only served me. It doesn't, and in certain areas, maybe it still serves me. But going back to, I chase peace now. That's what I want to. And not always do I have peace, but going back to why I have that 18-acre property. Being able to go for a walk and sit and drink coffee. And last week I had to go take up, and I said, Boris came up. We're talking about work. And then I said, hey, let's just go for a walk and take a quick 20-minute break. We go sit by a pine tree and we just sit and we hear the breeze. We talk about some life and then we just sit there. And everything that I have that's going on in the house and on the computer and all the stuff, I didn't bring it with me. It can't touch me here because I'm in my peace right now. And so that's what I'm truly, because I think Chris Williamson does a great job. I'm going to go chase what I think is success. But can I be proud of me during that journey? And will I have peace through that journey? Because what's the goal and what's it worth? And I've always learned this: what gain the world but lose your soul. Mm-hmm. What good is it if I get to 50 million or 100 million or whatever the number in my head would be, but I'm miserable the whole time? What if I don't have peace? What if I can't be present? It kills me that 2 weeks ago that I had a moment come up in our business that happened, that water at the cabin stopped working and all the things. And for the next 2.5 hours on a drive home at 6:30 on a Tuesday, I don't know what my girlfriend's talking to me about. I'm trying to figure out how we're going to deal with these problems, how I'm doing this and all that stuff. You're not
present.
And I'm not in the present in that moment, and I understand that.
That actually sets up the question I have for you. Even though you've grown as much as you have, I still think that whether it was you 2 years ago, like you mentioned, a year ago, or even 20 years ago, if I set you down and I looked at you and I said, do you want to be a good husband? Do you want to be a good father? Do you want to be a good role model, a good leader? All the things that you listed, you still would have said yes. It would have been a priority to you. Yeah. But what do you think it is that allows you to accomplish that now that you see differently?
The people I have in my life. Like, I always knew that back. Because that's just...
Meaning to, like, model those people that you have in your life? Or what does that mean to you?
So what I mean by that is, like, it drives me even more now. When I would have said yes then, it drives me more now because of the people I have in my life to show up for them.
I see.
For the woman I have in my life, for her son, for the friends I have in my life, for the employees I have. Yeah. I feel like it's my responsibility. Yeah. To become an even better version of myself. Modeling
is actually a very popular tool or powerful tool. Not the kind of modeling that you do, like, meaning you see somebody that they have a life you want, or they exude an energy or characteristics that you want to emulate, and you study them and then you model them to try to replicate what they do. Yeah. But they're still broken humans, and they're going to let 100%. You down. And so something that I've learned for me is, even though I still know I have a lot of work to continue to step into being the man that I want to be, the only thing that has allowed me to be the man that I am now and be any somewhat good at it is the more I allow God to change me and to really spend time in his word of learning who he designed me to be, and to trust him. And he doesn't give us just random rules or parameters for the sake of randomness. He gives us a blueprint, a design that if we live our lives the way he instructs and designed us, we by default end up being that husband, that father, that brother, that role model, because it's not our ability. We're going to be broken too. We're still going to drop the ball. We're still going to mess up. It's him doing it through us. Yep. That's my foundation of which I want to build everything on, is because I allow his work, his love to flow through me and not allow my brokenness to keep getting in the way of it. Yep. I think we're about to fight a helicopter again somehow, which I don't know how. That must be our neighbors, because I think Mitch is gone. But yeah, that must be our neighbor. Hopefully that's not their new Blackhawk. It's not, because otherwise these windows would be rattling. Unless you have a thought that you want to bring back in. There's one thing I want to finish.
Yeah, I just want to touch on what you just said, though, is like one of the biggest things that continues to, with that model of the people that are in my life, you did hit on it, is because continuing to grow my faith in Christ and like the man that he wants me to be. That's like I talked to you about last week, is, when I'm reading through Matthew and Mark, like I have been this last month, and like I told you about when Jesus knowingly knows that this is the last time with the disciples, and knows that what's about to happen, and has every opportunity to stop it. But he decides to say, no, this is what's supposed to be done. And he has the courage, the trust, to be able to move forward. That's, like when I'm reading the Bible and doing it, it's like, am I there? Can I get to that point? And continuing to read, because like you said, is for me, it's when I'm at the closest, when I'm the closest with God, and I'm in the Word, and I'm doing the things that, like, I get to watch the sunrise. The sunrise truly brings me more peace than most things. Yeah. And it's because I just get to see the beauty of God, and I get to see the beauty of where we're at and what he's created. Mm-hmm. But I also get to realize I have another day. Yeah. It's a gift. And so I just share that because when you say that modeling, that's hey, how do I do this best version? But also when we're talking about, hey, well, how do you know you have so much work to do? Because I'm reading about all the work I still have to do.
Sure. I'm glad I asked you if there was something you wanted to say there, because actually what you just said set up this perfectly. And I'm probably going to butcher this, trying to regurgitate how my friend explained this to me the other day, because he landed it beautifully and it really hit home for me. So I'm going to try to do the same. We'll see. But he talks about how even though we want to be a good husband or a good father, when our children are going ballistic, throwing tantrums, and your spouse is going through really hard time of the same thing you are, dealing with it, going through it on top of the normal stresses of life, it gets to this point that even though we want to be that person, left to our own ability, we're not able to. Even if it's like, okay, 10 events take place in a day that are all very challenging to your patience, or challenging to your ability to stick to being that person you've decided you want to be. Let's say you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those things have taken place and you're actually able to kind of maintain course. You're like, I'm handling this pretty good, but it's starting to build. It's starting to build. 6 happens, 7 happens, 8 happens. Now you're getting to the point you're like even thinking to yourself, if anything else happens today, I think I might snap. And now your fuse is getting shorter and shorter as it stacks. And then you get to 9 and to 10. And now you're at the point you're about to snap. You're about to go off on your spouse or on the kid or on yourself, or go cope, or whatever that looks like for you. And it's in that moment that we have a choice to submit to God and say, I can't do this on my own, even though I want to really badly. That's my heart's intention. But if there's going to be any good that comes from this right now, that comes from me, that my spouse sees or my child sees, it's going to have to come from you. It's going to have to come from you and flow through me, because right now all I feel is electricity. Bad.
A lot of it.
Yes. And we start to go to this self-pity mode of, well, they don't help me enough, or that the kid doesn't understand how, or doesn't appreciate everything I do for him.
It's your protection mode.
Exactly. And where he brought this to me in a way that's really cool is, you go back to even that Tony Robbins example. Like, he talks a lot about, you can either focus on the good things that happen in a day or the bad things that happen in a day. And whichever one you focus on is the one you're going to give the most power to, which then means you're going to end up focusing and seeing more good or more bad than the other, whichever one you focus on throughout the rest of your day. Now, when we have Christ in our life, I do not believe that God creates people and says, I created this one to go to heaven and I created this one to go to hell. I don't believe that. I know there's some people that believe that. I don't believe that. And the reason why I don't believe that is because he's given us free will. He knows what we're going to choose, but he didn't create you to be damned.
No, 100%.
He creates you to allow you to choice. The greatest choice we can ever make is to choose to love him back, because he first loved us. Now, then what happens is, let's bring that into today. It's not just when we die. Like, okay, I said the prayer, I checked the box, and now when I die, he's going to either let me into heaven or send me to hell. I chose isolation from him by my choices. I could have chosen him all along. He didn't create me to damn me there. He didn't choose that for me. He gave me the choice, and I chose the world, or I chose my insecurities about God, or what I've believed wrongly about God, to be louder. That, like, I can't believe that he's actually good, because then he could potentially let me down. I can't believe that he actually loves me, because all the bad things that happen in my life seem to contradict that. So it's easier for me to believe that he's not real, or that he's not a good God. I choose that path. Well, that's also in our everyday moment to moment. When Jesus talks about, like, coming here to bring life, and when we accept him, that we are with him now and the Spirit was within us, you have the choice right now, when you get to that 8th, 9th, 10th event that takes place, to live in hell now, or to choose to allow his grace to flow through you. When we step into that self-pity, when we step into that anger and what we need right now to make ourselves feel better about all the injustices that keep taking place, we choose to now focus on, all right, I need to make this better. This isn't fair. I'm going to be stuck in hell. A hell for today. when right there is available to say, okay, this is really hard and I can't do this on my own. I'm going to allow you into this moment. I'm going to turn my focus and my attention into you. I don't know how to communicate through this. I don't know how to still show patience through this. I need you to flow through me in this way. And that puts us in a mental state. And now we're in a place where we're stopped focusing on ourselves and what's not fair to us, and allows us to then stepping into how we can love the people around us better.
Yep.
That's what's helping me a ton. And so to now take that, whether if you're not religious, you're like, I'm not even close to getting to that, Brenton. Where I'm still at is I'm sitting here watching Jacob and you talk, and I'm listening to all of the things that he's accomplished, and I'm listening to the way that he can just talk through a scenario or a situation and dissect it and forecast and implement. I don't feel like I'm that guy or that girl, or I'm stuck right now on my couch watching this episode, or in front of my computer right now watching this episode. And I've been stuck for a long time. Like, be honest with yourself. You've been stuck, and what's been keeping you stuck, like you said, is the lies you're telling yourself. So hopefully the things that we've talked about have landed, but it might seem overwhelming because we've ran through and talked through a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So I want to simplify it into one scenario for you to think through and then make a decision based upon. That scenario is, you're still sitting on your couch right now. You're still sitting in front of your computer, or however you're watching this, you're in your car, whatever. If you choose to stay stuck and stay on that couch, at some point, even though it feels safe right now, it feels safer than taking a risk and doing something. Someone is still going to criticize you for never getting off the couch and doing anything. Yep. You're going to hear them say, oh, they're a nice person, but they never went for it. Oh, they're a nice person, everything, but their fears got the best of them. Oh, they're a nice person, but they never amounted to anything. If you stay sitting on the couch, it might feel safe, but that scrutiny is still coming. That judgment's still coming.
Yep.
Your fear of, if I go try something and I fail, what are people going to think? You're fearing their scrutiny. So you're going to get it either way.
Yep.
No matter what, even if you choose to be a monk, pastor, or you want to go try to be a professional athlete and people laugh at you, or get into medical to sales advice, or make $1 billion, whatever it is, there's going to be someone out there that's going to laugh at you, that's going to make fun of you, even if you stay stuck right where you are. Yep. So you have a decision. Which one would you rather be made fun of for?
Yep.
Staying stuck where you are right now, or would you rather be made fun of for actually going and doing something and trying to find what's going to bring peace and happiness and fulfillment? Because that comfort, even though it feels warm and cozy right now, it suffocates us. It's the slow boil, like the frog in the boiling water. Comfort does not bring peace. Doing the hard thing and on the other side of it is where we end up finding peace. Yep. So you have a decision to make. Which decision will you choose? That's up to you today.
And one thing I want to just say to that is, go for it. Two things. One, if you're watching this and you're like, hey, I'm happy with where I'm at, I'm all that, cool.
Good for you. You're already at peace. You won.
Like you won. So I just want to put that out there, because
we're podcast. We'll listen to yours.
Yeah, because I'm never saying, hey, go make more money or go do this stuff.
Not what we're saying at all.
Right. I have this talk.
Saying the opposite.
Just, I have this talk with my girlfriend all the time of like the fact of like, I'm only saying this to the people who are sitting here telling me they want all this stuff. Mm-hmm. If you don't tell me you want that, cool. Do your thing. You're happy. But if you're wanting this, you're telling me you want this, and then you sit on the couch, that's where I'm gonna be like, all right, here we go.
Sure.
Right. And so the reason I'm sharing this, a hypocrite, right? But the reason I'm just sitting here, hopefully this can help, is literally yesterday, just listening to a podcast while I ended my day, sat in the hot tub, put on a little podcast, and I was like, okay. And it's with Alex Hermosa, and he talked about his story. And his story, where he was at, he hated it, and it actually almost led him to suicide. It led him to death. And so he said, I knew the trajectory and where I was at was going to lead to disappointment and possible death, like unhappiness, no matter what, and possible death. And he said, but I know there was another thing where he was working at this nice business, did everything, graduated at doctor's kid, Vanderbilt, all this stuff. But he said there's another path that there was a glimpse of hope, a glimpse of maybe it was good. Maybe I like that. And he said, so I had to make the decision. Do I decide to stay in the disappointment, the known death, known of I'm going to hate it, or am I going to chase the little glimpse? And he said the little glimpse won. A lot of people stay in this, but he's like, for me, because I already had started talking about suicide, the little glimpse won. And so I'm going to go chase that. And what that led him? That let him go into across the country. But he let his parents know, or his dad know, and the dad's like, hey, come over and we'll talk. And he's like, hey, I'm already gone. because he already knew what that conversation was going to lead to. So he's like, I'm just leaving. And then he did that. And then horrible relationship with the dad and all this stuff. But what happened? He went from safe job, making hundreds of thousands, doing all the stuff that he hated, to being broke, waking up in a gym to clean the floors and work 18-hour days. Loved it. Now, one of probably the most successful on social media, like again, that he does in the acquisition. Very successful person doing what he did, but it never started with him with that goal. It was, I know I just don't know I don't like what I'm doing. I'm just going to go chase something else that at least has a little glimmer of hope. Mm-hmm. And so all I'm just saying to anybody listening, what you already can go back to exactly what you're doing. Mm-hmm. That's what I say to every single person. We work with a lot of nurses, PTs, OTs, and all these people are like, what if it doesn't work out? And I'm like, go get a job at another hospital where they're short staffed and they'll probably pay you more money than you're making currently because you just changed a job. And they're like, oh yeah, I guess. Right? But they're always focused on all of this. But again, it goes back to, but what if my parents, or what if my friends, or what if they have coworkers, or what if, and all I'm just going to say is, what if the aliens come and get us tomorrow? We can always sit here and say all the what ifs. But what I think about on the daily is, I know I'm not going to live forever on this earth. When I'm on my final day, do I want to live with the regret of what I never went and accomplished and wish I would have? Or do I want to look back and be like, went for it? I may have failed, but I'm not dying wishing I would have tried. And the reason I just share that is because that's one of the things. I've studied a lot of the entrepreneurs, a lot of the guys you're going to listen to podcasts, they talk about it. Study older people. The number one thing that will make you change your life, go to a nursing home and listen to all the regrets. My grandma right now is on her last season of life. I love her. Most of our conversations of what she regrets every single day. Every time I talk to her, she wishes she would have done this. She hates that she did this. It's not about where she's at. It's just the reflection of her life and what she's so sad about. And so the reason I just share that with you is every single day, that's what I chase. Knowing that I'm going to have regrets. I'm wishing that I handled situations better. I know that's going to happen. But the big ones, am I good at ever, like for me, when that person says I've accomplished one. That's why I'm at this such a weird place in my life of everything I've actually set out to this piece of my life, I've accomplished it. With the confidence knowing anything else I set out, I will accomplish it. But now I'm in a place in life where I'm a little different than I was when I was 23, broke as heck. And now I'm really like, what do I want out of this life now? Because what I wanted at 23 isn't the same what I want at 30. And what I know won't be the same I want at 38. And so the reason I'm just saying that is looking at that life, and that's what's always drove me. Would I sit here and be happy if I just stayed in the same small town, made a living for 40 years, did the same thing, barely got by, whatever it is, and called it life? To me, at 23, heck no, I could have never been okay with that. The older I'm getting now, I have a ranch. I'm like, I just sit on the ranch. Okay, maybe now I'm like, yeah, I'm not as bad there. But the reason I'm just saying that is I check in with myself, but what am I willing to regret? And what would I would never want to regret? Mm-hmm. And that's what I just share to anybody listening. Would you regret going and just trying something, trying for your dream? And what worst case scenario, somebody's going to say something bad and you go back to it? Like for me, because what I always share with all of our human beings that we work with every day, a lot of you guys are thinking, what if it goes wrong? Mm-hmm. But I'm going to sit here and say, what if it goes right? The only reason I'm sitting here with everything that I have today and what I've accomplished is because, A, God, that's easy, number one. But number two, I always just kept telling myself, what if it went right? Yeah. And it's gone better than I could have ever imagined. But I just kept trusting. I kept believing. I kept working the 14-hour days. I kept having the hope. I kept saying this isn't for nothing. And I understood everything I did, whether it was landscaping to strength and conditioning to personal training to med device sales to running a business. Every single part of my journey gave me experiences, gave me tools for my tool set that are going to only make me a better person, a better version of myself. And even now, why did I leave med device sales when I'm making all this money and to go full-time in my business? Because I'm 30. I'm 30. If it doesn't work out, I can go make 300 grand today in med device sales. I have offers come in on a monthly basis. I'm friends with CEOs. I can do that. But I might never have the other choice to be 30 this young to go try to build a business like I have today. But also what I've always prided myself out, because we've had some not great situations with competitors doing sketchy things to us and getting lost, just all the stuff. And I'm like, they're all in their 50s and I'm in my 30s. Take it all away from me. The only thing I got on you is another 20 plus years. And now I have all this experience. I lose everything I have today. Everyone always sees the millionaires lose all their money and they get it back within a year. And I'll do the same. I got the skill set. I've learned the tools. So you take everything I have today, it might not even be the same business. We do a lot of things. Right now, we were just talking. We have a studio. I have people on the daily being like, can we rent your studio? I can make that do 6 figures. It's whatever I want. But the reason I'm just saying that is every part of the journey goes to it. But I understood like every piece I'm stepping into for me now is only adding to my tool set.
Sure.
And now at 30, I'm like, cool. And guess what? 35, it might be totally different. Might want totally different things. I might go back to being a W-2. Who knows? But the reason I just share that is that's what I've always thought about. That's the positivity that I've always thought of is like, what if? And the last thing I really wanted to get by, because throughout this episode, you've said something that has continued to just stay with me is like when we're like going through this journey and trusting God, and maybe I don't know if it's going to work out and all this stuff. I remember showing you a song called Stay Strong. And it's when I was going through the most therapy in my life and I was going through crippling anxiety and everyone thinks building a business is tough. How about you face your stuff you've put down for 30 years? That's tough. But I'm going on these walks and I'm doing this and still in med device sales making great money. My business is making even more money. Like I'm living my dream. But yet I'm still having more anxiety, more stress, more things than I've ever had in this moment. But not till I got to a point where I could really feel this, where the song by Stay Strong, and I think it's by Danny Goki. But the reason I share this is he talks about, I'm going to trust you no matter what, God. And even if I never get what I think I was going to get, you'd still be enough. If everything was taken away from me today, can I sit there and praise God and say, thank you? When my grandma passes away, can I sit there and still say, thank you, I love you? That to me has freed me in so many ways. Because when we talk about, I no longer, yes, there's the money pieces in the but that's not who I am. Can I just lean to him? And let me just make this really clear, my friends. I am not perfect. I am not a perfect Christian. Me and God are still working on this whole cursing thing. I got that. The reason I'm just saying this is through this journey of your life, when I felt the most freedom was when I could say, whether I accomplish everything I have on my heart, and I think it's from you, God, or I don't, I can still sit here and say, you're enough. And this is enough. Because in those moments, I just want you guys to know is that's the same guy who moved out here, had no money, to the same guy that was making over $1 million, still searching for just peace, to finally be able to go on walks and watch the sunset, listen to the birds, and understand if it all goes away, I'd still be okay. And guess what? Tripled the business because of that. And that's what I would just share with people is, I promise you this journey you're going to go on, it's going to be hard. And the things you can't even imagine are going to happen. But I can promise if you still keep doing what you're doing, it's going to be hard. And there's going to be things that you could have never imagined are going to happen still.
You're right.
And so the reason I just say that is you might as well go for it. And just understand the last piece is climb the mountain. Just understand once you climb the mountain, there's just another mountain to climb. And I'm not saying from a corporate world, I'm not saying from a business world. I'm saying that every single person thinks you're going to climb somewhere and finally be able to say, I made it. And there's a piece to that, you will, but the 23-year-old who wanted to make the money, at 30, I've done that. But my life's not over. I got another mountain to climb. And that's what I just share for you guys is change that mindset instead of what if it works out or what if it doesn't, to this life's a journey. Don't focus on the destination because the journey is longer than the destination. Have the goal. Fall in love with the journey. I said this to one of our guys the other day. Building that business and building the business I have now, what drove me to do all the 14-hour days? What drove me to wake up at 4 and work 4 hours before I went to work, and then work 8 hours there, 10 hours there, to then go work till 11 o'clock to where my eyes hurt, to then I fall asleep exhausted to wake up and do it again? It's because I just wanted to help people. Just wanted to care about people. But I sit back now and I think about how exciting it was to be broken 23 chasing that freaking dream. Because even now I'm chasing a dream, but it's not the same. I can go buy the car. I can go hire more help. I can do this stuff. But being that 23-year-old kid broke, waking up on an air mattress with a hole on it, waking up at 3:50 and being like, I'm doing it. A year ago, I was miserable. I'm still broke just like I was there, but I'm not nearly as miserable because I'm chasing something that I just at least wanted. First paycheck, $550, 2 weeks of work, working part-time at a gym. Cried when I got that check because I remembered working for the same 40-hour week to do landscaping to get that check. And now I was living in Scottsdale, Arizona with sunshine and got to talk to people, which I love to talk. And I taught jumping jacks and I made the same money. I don't know if that helps. I don't know
it
how
does.
that
Thank
helps.
you for your vulnerability.
I just want to share it with people because I just want you guys to live your life. Because
I think people can see and feel your emotion coming through. And I really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing those things. And hopefully it's helped some of you.
Yeah.
If you do decide to get up from the couch or out from in front of that computer or wherever you're watching this and to go for it, let us know. I love that Jacob has not plugged his course. I don't know if they'll throw the infomercial that's normally embedded in my videos on this one, but the link's always in the description of the videos. So if you are interested in pursuing a career that can lead to financial freedom and allows you to work with this guy, which is a blessing, check that out. My email is there. I don't want anything from you. But if you do decide to face that giant and to start climbing the mountain like he said, we'd love to hear about your successes.
Yeah.
And to know that when you do experience the setbacks, when you do experience the criticism or being falsely accused or whatever that looks like that's difficult to deal with, it's not the end. You will grow from it. You will get stronger. God is with you, and you got people that care about you.
And I'm just going to let you all know that means you're actually doing something.
Yeah, you're doing something.
It means that you're actually on the right road. And I just want you to know, because everyone that you're watching that you think successful has faced the exact same thing. So if you get that, I remember the first time I got lawyers to reach out to me. Not mine, other lawyers.
Yeah, right. A little different.
A little different. And I remember being so upset, so mad, so everything. And then I remember 2 years ago, prior to that, 2 years prior to that, I said, I'm going to make something so big that the biggest people in the space are going to come after me.
Mm.
That day that happened, I went for a run. I had more electricity than most people would ever understand. But I also had more joy and gratitude in the same, because I was like, we're doing it, baby. And so the reason I'm just sharing that to everyone is it's just the change of mindset. What you think is bad or people being bad, that means you're actually on the path to success.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be getting calls from lawyers or building a business.
For the love of God, I hope it's not.
It can be as simple as cleaning the room that if you look around right now is a mess, or making your bed, taking care of yourself, building a consistent routine that you follow. Take baby steps. Just build that momentum.
Yep.
You can do this.
Step by step.
I think that's a wrap.
That's it, man.
That's a wrap. Thank you guys for watching and listening. I've enjoyed these conversations so much. Even if only a few of you find any help or value in this, it's worth it. Just one of you. It's worth it.
Yep.
It was worth it. Some of the emails and messages that we've received about people taking information and either it helping their mindset or giving them tools to step into making a change in their life, it makes every single moment, minute, investment, all of the above worth it, because you're worth it.
Yep.
We'll see you in the next episode.